Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound and healthy, and I'm back. And it is with great pain that I have to talk about this, mainly because of the fact that when something is immensely disturbing and you do not know what more to do about it, except the constant repetition of, screaming blue murder about it, talking about all the things that have gone wrong, reminding yourself and others, reiterating the same things over and over again, it becomes very painful. The most painful part is the fact that your mind, just wants to then shut down. Shut down in the sense is that your mind knows that you've already talked so much about it, and yet things seem to basically just reoccur. It's like it's just happening over and over again, like you're stuck in a loop, and you need to be in some sort of a peace of mind, or that rage needs to build up to this extent where you have no choice but to then pick up the mic and talk. And we're at that point, I guess, where I finally managed to calm myself down enough to talk about it, but at the same time, the rage is building up. Because this is something that, I have talked so much about, everybody has talked so much about, I think, that it's becoming a joke at this point, where we talked about how the European Union and how the British, how they hid the observer's report of the major rigging of elections when this government, the PDM, stole our mandate and just sat on top of our heads. And that in itself was a red flag. And that was, again, something that I talked about in the beginning, and nobody else that time talked about it, maybe because they felt that they didn't have concrete evidence or whatever. I don't care, because the point is, to me, I don't need evidence to use my common sense. I don't need evidence to see something when history repeats itself over and over again. The fact that Imran Khan's sons, the fact that his former wife Jemima, who belong to a very influential family in the British society, and even in their influence reaches far out to the US as well, and the fact that they couldn't do anything about Imran Khan being kidnapped by our military, put in jail, and then him having won the elections from jail and still not being let out, still having false charges piled upon him, and then his wife also dragged to jail just because she's his wife. Nothing else, but just because she's his wife. The fact that all our, so-called culture that we're so proud of, we saw this US planted, this European Union coordinated government. We saw them come, and we saw them rip to shreds our whole culture, rip to shreds our whole religion, in the sense that the laws of our religion pertaining to treatment of women, treatment of the old, treatment of the children, treatment of civilians, the fact that they just ripped apart all of these, and they entered people's homes, they stole from them openly, they raided them, they kidnapped them, they tortured them, and the fact that they especially attacked women. And nobody can have the excuse that, oh, they realized how women were so dangerous because it was the overwhelming number of votes by the women that, made Imran Khan win all over again, even though he was in jail. No. They had started this prior to that. They started it when they kidnapped Imran Khan and tried to force him into jail. They started it when the people came out emotionally enraged with this act of treason by our own military, working with outside treasonous forces against our own elected government. When we came to the streets to protest that, then they started, kidnapping, torturing, and again, targeting women, and the old, but especially women again. So once again, the overwhelming amount of women who are right now in jail, or who are kidnapped, or who are missing, I think it probably now is much larger in percentage than the number of Baluchi men missing, kidnapped, whisked away into nothingness, where you don't know where they are. One of them being, for example, Khatija of Iran, Khatija Shah. Like, where is she? They claim that they let her out. They claim that she's wanted, but no, she never came out. They pretended to let her out, and then they whisked her back in, and nobody's heard anything about her. And you can see the American government's full cooperation with our illegal government in this matter, because she is also an American citizen. The Americans, the Canadians, the British, the fact that these governments did nothing to protect their citizens in Pakistan, and they did nothing to protect their citizens there in their own countries. Pakistani diaspora in these countries have been threatened, and these governments have accommodated our army in that threat, in that transnational repression. Okay? They actually coordinated with them. They allowed them to threaten, to attack, to assault these people, these overseas Pakistanis, on their own soil. Suddenly, the British government, the Italian government, the Spanish government, the French government, the American, the Canadian, suddenly they don't care about the security of their citizens. Or once again, as I've talked about it way before, when it all began, and even before that, is that it means a discrimination. It means that these governments are discriminating against their white citizens and their non-white citizens. So if you're a white citizen, then they will do anything to get help to you. But if you're not a white citizen, then yeah, to hell with whatever happens to you. It doesn't matter that you've paid millions and billions of dollars, or in investment in businesses and properties in those countries. It doesn't matter that you're a tax-paying citizen over there. It doesn't matter that you have rights. It doesn't matter that you are, that you have their passport or their nationality. It doesn't matter. So that's what we've come we've come down to this conclusion. And then you come on to seeing the ongoing torture, the ongoing human rights violations. But no, we're sitting applauding. Yeah, America, Britain, the world, their whole narrative is that we should sit. And even we've got some very pitiful, very miserable Pakistanis who are so desperate, so pathetically desperate, for anything positive in their lives, that they're like, oh, we'll take this as well. And we'll sit and applaud this government for being the facilitator in the Iranian-US negotiations or peace talks, when we know very well that actually Pakistan is not exactly a facilitator, but more like a messenger. And we've seen that. We've seen proof of it. We've seen evidence of it, right? Nobody can challenge that, right? But look at the narrative here. It is true that Pakistan has a history, a very, very long history of being a bridge in mediation, in international negotiations and peace talks, especially also in the capacity of saving American military ass more than once, by the way, in Africa and in other difficult situations as UN peace corps. Then we come to the fact that Pakistan was also heavily involved in the US-China talks when Kissinger was secretly, smuggled in so that he could go to Beijing and have that talk. So Pakistan has been very, very, very heavily involved in international mediation in various capacities, no doubt. Imran Khan himself, his own government, he was responsible for the American troops finally withdrawing from Afghanistan properly, and then returning to negotiations with the Afghan government. So yes, Pakistan has always played a role in international mediation and some of the most complex mediations and negotiations, no doubt. But it's another fact that also in the media, in the mainstream media, in the print, it doesn't matter which form of media it is. Pakistan has never been applauded. It has never been put properly on the record. Even now, despite the fact that the governments are, applauding and it's coming, online and everything. But if you look at the mainstream media, they're barely touching on the fact that Pakistan is actually right now in the center of it all, right? So, what are we after at this point? What are we applauding? we're applauding the fact that, oh yeah, you know what? It's true that there's human rights violations. It's true that Imran Khan is being poisoned and he's lost vision in one eye, and he actually lost it 100%. And then, he was taken and to the hospital when they did those secret treatments, and they claim he regained 15%, but he says no, nothing of the sort. He has no vision. And then they go and do the same thing to his wife. What are the coincidences? Seriously, what are the coincidences that both husband and wife go through the exact same issue, the exact same medical issue, in the exact same manner? Both are whisked secretly in the middle of the night for an unknown, unauthorized, surgery without the permission of their families, without the presence of their families. The families are not even allowed to see them, and nobody is allowed to meet them. And both of them were discharged from the hospital without the doctor's consent, against the doctor's consent, and brought back to jail. I mean, if you look at the history of how our politicians were imprisoned, from Zardari to Nawaz Sharif to Bhutto to any one of them, even Maryam Nawaz, they were literally living in resorts. Yeah, they were literally living in private residences with their own chefs, with their own drivers, with their own team of lawyers and doctors and everything, having full access to every single thing, right? But they used to make such a hue and cry, pretending as if, oh, they were in jail and this. None of them have actually seen jail. If there is anybody who has seen jail, it is Imran Khan, and it is Bushra Bibi, his wife. And that's a fact here. So we are hiding all of that, distracting the world, or allowing the world to say that, oh, it's okay. Yeah, we know that they're committing human rights violations. We know that they're poisoning the former prime minister and his wife. We know that they're torturing them. We know that even the UN and the Amnesty International have printed out reports and reports and reports of the fact that both of them are being tortured, and that their jail sentence is not even legal, and their treatment is not legal, and everything. But you see, Pakistan is right now working with the US to achieve the US's demands and claims and needs and wants. So let's just look at that. Let's look at that as the bigger picture. How many times are we going to choose one evil over the other? And since when was it okay to choose one evil over good? I don't know. Well, right now the azans are going on, and I think that this is enough for me to ask this question. Think about it, okay? Think about the fact that Bushra Bibi also had no legal team communication. Her legal team actually filed a petition with the Islamabad High Court alleging that the surgery, which was conducted unauthorized in the middle of the night on 16th of April, 2026, yes, this very month, just a few days ago, that surgery was conducted under undisclosed circumstances without informing her family or lawyers beforehand, okay, which I've said before. But I'm repeating these word for word so that it should get ingrained in your mind properly, okay? The fact that the mysterious procedures that I've talked about is also what the legal team has talked about, because it exposes the jail's administration's previous false claims that she was in good health. One we all know, actually, because this is insider source news from reliable people who were formerly part of the government, who are now they've made it their mission to talk about it in their vlogs, like Dr. Shehbaz Gill and others, where it has been mentioned that for a month she was in agony, and for 10 days she was in total devastation, and they deliberately ignored, which comes to calculated medical neglect, which is again something that her legal team has petitioned against, because or at least I hope they should have petitioned against, because this is something that even the party officials are talking about, that her symptoms, which was blurred vision, headaches, and the fact that she was in so much pain that she could hardly talk even, and sometimes she had to literally scream in pain. So these were ignored for a prolonged period, which, as I said, was over a month, and especially those last 10 days before her surgery, allowing a manageable condition to deteriorate into a severe medical emergency, which again is identical to Imran Khan. So this is that red flag, that we are all identifying here. Slow poisoning of Imran Khan, slow poisoning of Bushra Bibi, withholding of medical records, and then forging medical records, This is, and the jail authorities, if they say that, oh, Bashar Bibi was examined by specialists immediately after complaining of vision, they're wrong. We know that they're wrong. If they're saying they're following standard procedure, that is also wrong, because our laws are very clear on what those standard procedures are, which means that the family must be present, their consent must be given. It must be up to them where and how she needs to get the surgery. Same for Imran Khan. And they went against all of these standard procedures. You think on that. Okay, while you sit and applaud your little asses off on, Pakistan being in the limelight here, understand this, that this is a way for Pakistan to legitimize an illegitimate government. It is to legitimize fascism, to legitimize authoritarianism, to legitimize dictatorship. Okay? Understand that. Understand that once again, as you have done in the last 70 years, you are once again sitting and aiding and abetting home invaders in a crime against us, we the state. Okay? Think about that while you applaud your little asses off. And this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.